Yeah, well, Prof here, and you guys are going to get a new angle for today's video because I don't want to have to lift the big. It's looking like a fucking tornado went through. That's what happens when I review new headphones, and I still haven't even really had a chance to listen to them properly for more than a couple minutes. Work and life has been a bit nuts as of late, but something that's been needed for the home theater area, which is also a bit of a mess at the moment, is right there. The new hotness from the audiophile community, or I should say, I don't know if it's audio, home theater, audio community. I don't even know. Guys, a lot of my stuff is like 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s era. I'm not the most I can't even see what you're seeing. Literally can't see what you're seeing right now. Need a friggin' mirror. Legitimately. Need a mirror. Or I use the iPhone in selfie mode to see what this guy. So what, we gotta get it right there? We can do that. Almost 50 pounds there. We finally got ourselves a new subwoofer. I have been using the same shitty subwoofer. Shouldn't say shitty. Yeah, we're in frame. I've been using. It was fine. It was from like a 5.1 setup. Ages ago. Maybe once we're done unboxing this, we can go take a look. Just getting some Pocari sweat. So I was running Ethernet right before this. I had to come up with a new route. Turns out my wires are going a little bit different than where the old ones, or the original ones for the house were. And I'm running way more and thicker wire than what they originally ran. We got the Tuck HD here. For those wondering, this is the, I believe it's RSL, 10E. So this is kind of the best bang for your buck. I wouldn't say budget subwoofer, but like entry level subwoofer for your home theater. These are popular to the point where once I found out about this a couple weeks ago, I had to get on an email list to be able to back order it. And then they had a restock time and date. And I woke up early to get it. Looks like it's a box in a box. Just the whole box the whole way down? Yes. I'll tip it out. If I knew I didn't have to reuse this big box, often the best way is just to cut one side off. Luckily this isn't like a refrigerator or something where You can't do the classic PC case where you just flip her over, right? Oh. Oh. Caution, heavy, yeah, no shit. Maybe that should be on the outside of the box. RSL speaker subwoofer 10E. There you go. Designed, engineered, Los Angeles, California. This is like I said, I was thinking 12-inch sub. It looks like what would have been the 12-inch, like a entry-level subs. I think they're all 12-inch way back. Is now a 10-inch sub. Like a lot of ones people are recommending were 10-inch. I don't know if that's because they can get a better speaker or response out of the 10-inch, you know, being like a tighter subwoofer. I was just looking for something that was a step up from what I had, because I've had the same subwoofer basically since I got them secondhand at a garage sale. Actually, my uncle might have gotten them secondhand at a garage sale for me. And it was a subwoofer. So especially back when I didn't have front speakers that were big enough to act as full range. Hugely important. I actually used to use, and I've heard some of this is coming back now with Atmos and stuff, but I used to use like there used to be PC 5.1 channel surround systems, right? Eventually, I just switched to using a home theater receiver and doing Toslink 5.1 Dolby Digital out. Actually, really, really nice. I could easily switch that over to, at the time, like an Xbox 360 was plugged in. Oh, well, Xbox 360 was plugged in. For Halo and Battlefield Band Company 1 was only on the 360, not on PC. Stuff like that, because we just played that on the computer monitor, because at the time, my only non-sort of CRT viewing device for the longest time was my computer monitor. That's why it was actually interesting for the longest time how 4K TVs became a thing, right? But like standard for monitors is still 1080p. Now in this past year or so, I would argue it's starting to go up to 1440, because there's literally, it's like $135 for a decent 1080p, and it's like $145 to $155 for a 1440p. Like the pricing actually there is like nothing. Whereas, and that's for entry. Actually, you can go even cheaper, but for an entry level, just good monitor, has all the features and specs you want. You know, there you go. You can read that. But yeah, back in the day, like it'd be hundreds of dollars for a 1680 by 1050 monitor. Luckily, the one I had could take digital DVI, analog DVI, component, VGA. So I had all these different ways of hooking up the consoles, and I had a KVM, 4-way KVM switch, bunch of shit like that. But I would just use home theater for it, and it was actually worked really, really well. I think it was like some JVC stuff. But and I hear some people are starting to do that now as well, because there really isn't like I want to say from back in that area, because I did a 5.1, 6.1, and even 7.1 at one point dedicated PC surround setups. Those are not really a thing anymore. So you just get yourself a home theater receiver, HDMI out of there, of your PC to the home theater receiver, and then you got yourself, DTS Master Audio or whatever the spatial version of that is, or your Dolby Atmos, etc. So we've got like a mismatch of a bunch of different things for my home theater setup. No, some of it's unique. I think I've showed off some of it before. Some of you would be like, oh, you can definitely get better stuff than nowadays. Yep, maybe someday. This is the first piece besides the only piece that I've always updated in my home theater surround setups has always been the receiver, because it comes to a point where, well, HDMI 2.0B can't pass through a 4K 120 hertz HDR yada yada signal anymore, right? And speakers are still speakers, those still work, but the receiver can't handle the output from the PC, the game consoles, the NVIDIA Shield, etc. And when going from HDMI 1.4 to 2.0, I think it was 2.0B, that at least did 4K 60 HDR, same thing there. Squares actually has my TV and receiver and like basically my previous setup. I offered it to my mom, but she didn't want to deal with it, so easy peasy there. I think we're gonna do the same thing we did with the original box and flip this guy over. Yeah, this is the first piece. Like I've been through since that original JVC. I had like one or two Pioneers. Then on the last one, Pioneer had like a bad batch where they just like would die. Like they were really good pricing, and they crushed the comparable Yamahas. But they would just die out of nowhere after about 2 years. That was while I was working at Geek Squad, and we talked to the in-home guy, and he's like, yeah, they just go. It was kind of like I had one of my Sonys that had a VA panel rather than an IPS panel, and it had it was a 55-inch, I think it was a D, something D. Then I got an E, and a 49-inch. It was X800 D or E. I think I went from an X800E 55-inch to an X900F 49-inch because I really did not need that extra size in the way it used to be oriented, and that's what Squares has now. But the X800E's backlighting, because it had the multi-zone, but there weren't that many, but the zones would just go out. It looked like it had bruises everywhere. Same thing around that same era as when those Pioneers would go out. That isn't when I needed the I don't think I needed the HDMI 2.0B yet. Back then, just needed to have certain support of certain audio codecs and general 4K, like 4K 30 support. But when I went to that X900F, where it could do 4K 60 HDR or 1080p 120, no HDR. That's why I need to upgrade the receiver. Then I went with a Denon. That thing, rock solid. I'll probably just continue to buy Denons because my current one haven't had a lick of issues. And then I ran that for years upon years. I say that, it was probably like 5 years or something, and it's still kicking over with Squares. So, that was after the Pioneer just shit itself, and that was like a known issue, and they knew the part would go out. Didn't do anything about it. I don't know if they knew the part would go out initially, but you'd think if it's like a known flaw, they'll like do some extended warranty service shit, but no. So I'm stuck with the Denons. They've been good. current ones that did it. Cost a pretty penny too this time around to get the. It's probably a bit easier now, but in the past, what would happen, or not even in the recent past, if you wanted one that could do the full bandwidth of HDMI 2.1, a lot of receivers would only give you one port with that capability. The first gen, I should say, of those receivers would only give you one port. Which is like, what's the fucking point then? Because the receiver is supposed to switch between these different devices with these different inputs of all that quality, right? Yeah. Said pay up for a one better, and I thought I was going to get a deal at one point. I saw a thing, and then you did the research, and it would be like, oh yeah, the reason why that's so cheap is because that was the last year's model, and now the current year's model are out. It's the old ones are basically useless because they only had that one actual input for what you wanted. Like the other inputs wouldn't be capable of like what you were actually buying it for. So kind of annoying. Been happy. The only thing that's been annoying is like sometimes you have to switch to an input and switch back. I've just gotten used to it. I think Linus over at LTT ran into that recently. Apparently some of it might be due to the NVIDIA Shield TV wanting to take over. Like if it's set to automatically do it via CEC, anytime the receiver turns on, it tries to take over control of everything. Yeah, my only complaint is that with the receiver, at least, is that you sometimes use it to switch between inputs. It fixes itself for the rest of the night. It's done that since day one. So I have put in stuff before with it. It got a little bit better at one point after like a LG TV update, but if it is what Linus says, where it's the Shield, well, that ain't gonna change, because until they make a new Shield, that's not going anywhere. Hopefully with the Nintendo Switch 2 out, meaning the processor for, I forget one, the Switch 1 used the same processor as the original NVIDIA Shield, or effectively the same processor. Actually, it was the same to the point where Wii U games in China, you know, like the ones that were later on available via the Switch, those were in China. Those were made available via the NVIDIA Shield, because back then, at least, you couldn't buy a Nintendo console in China. They wanted to be able to sell their games, or somebody locally wanted to be able to sell their games at least. Or sell Nintendo games, I should say, or play them. So they basically made Wii U games available emulated on the Shield, because it used the same chip as the Switch. But this thing, that is a beefy son of a... Okay, so the phase control in here isn't just 180 or 0. You could do it at 90, which is probably where mine's going to be. I don't know how well we can... Let's see if we can relocate you guys on the camera. Up there. Whoop. Immediately fell. Let's clip you on a little cart here. Paisley's checking out the new subwoofer. Alright, so this is an RSL Speakers 10E. Like I said, designed and engineered in California. Let's take a little peek. Really nice front on it. Look at that. So this is where I was saying, this feels like the casing size on this feels about the same as my 12-inch sub. And it kind of shows here that you could probably fit a 12-inch in this box. I'm not saying you want to, because they even have a step up from this that's still a 10-inch. But a lot of the ones that people were saying in the entry-level price point and performance-wise, some of the better performing ones for this price point are 10-inch. There are some 12-inch options, but a lot of people are like, never buy those. And they're kind of like just if you go to, it's the options where if you go on Best Buy and you just sort by subwoofer cheapest, that's what you'll get. This one, I want to say was $400, $300, somewhere there. 350, 400. You can get it cheaper if you can find scratch and dent. I don't think you're going to find that, though, because they sell out basically instantly. Let's check here. SL10E. $339. So after tax, white's out already, and supposedly they have some like blemish stuff, but none were available when I got the notification that new ones were coming in, and they're like, yep, we're gonna have stock on Friday at whatever time. It was only perfect ones, which is fine by me. I wouldn't have minded a blem one because it's gonna go behind a fucking couch, basically. So something that's nice is phase here. It comes at 0. It's available at up to 180, and you're like, of course, because you can flip it. Yes, correct. But a lot of lower tiered subwoofers would only have 0 or 180, meaning it's in the front facing at you, or it's in the back facing at you from behind. In my case, I may very well have it facing to the left of me, in the left corner, basically facing at me from the side. So that is where I might need to use the phase of 90. Now, what you're supposed to do, I think testing wise, reading up on it, was just basically see which is loudest. Like, play it with your speakers and see which option is the loudest for you, and that's what you go with. Because what it can actually do is it can actually make the sound between your mains. This is pertaining that your mains are big enough to act as subwoofers, which if you're buying something like this, I sure hope they are. And this is kind of the price you should be expecting to pay for, at least from what I was looking at. Some of them might go as low as 300 that are like kind of in the recommended list, but everybody is like, this is the one, basically. So I was like, fuck it, I'll get it then. Because not that I'm not a huge audiophile, but it's home theater stuff. Like I said, I've been living with the same JVC subwoofer, I think it's a JVC at least, for decades now. It's and subwoofer, right? I want decent home theater audio. If I want quality, I'm going to go to my desk and use my studio monitor speakers or my studio monitor headphones. But I do want it to sound good, right? So here we have your volume, nice pots, nice smooth pots, crossover frequency. Okay, so it's got a bypass all the way down, which is home theater settings, left LFE. That may be what I leave it on. Otherwise, if you want to set it yourself here, you can. There's settings for 30, just beyond the bypass, 80, and then 200. I believe the reason why they have 80 as a step is that is for THX. I can tell you that 120 is the one for Dolby Digital. I don't know about Dolby Atmos, Dolby Digital though. There's a high chance though what you're actually going to want to do, because I'm going to be running a singular RCA cable, not line outs, which a reason why you might run line outs is if you want to use this crossover. Right. And what you're going to do is some of the level 2 speakers, or your B set of speakers on some receivers will actually have RCA outs to go to a different amp. Or that might be a different, some of them might consider that a different room or a different level. I've seen on either, I don't know if it was the Pioneers or the Denons. So in that case, you'd want to run your dual left rights, go beyond bypass, and then set it here. In this case, and I will read the manual to make sure what this looks like, is if you just use a singular one, which is what I will be using, and that's home theater setting, and it bypass. So if you leave it below this click, your receiver is the one choosing what is going to here, rather than this getting a line level signal from your receiver or whatever device, right? And then it controlling what it is doing. So that's a basic thing there. And like I said, phase, a lot of them would have just had a switch like this, so it's normal, like 0 and 180. In this case, like I said, I can set 90, which was important to me, because there's a high chance where this is going, it is going to be a like a 90-degree offset from where I am, or where it will eventually be. I don't know if that's where it will be right now. And then we have auto on and off. That is a nice feature. One thing you got to consider, though, is it does take a couple seconds for it to detect and turn on. If you're fine with that, or if you like have sounds going, like obviously when I navigate the computer, sometimes there's just sounds that are going, that'll wake it up. And then, or like if you're navigating the menu in your Shield TV, it'll make sounds. That'll be enough to wake it up, usually. Then it'll be on and ready for when you actually play back content. There is like a threshold for this, so it has to be a loud enough sound. A lot of people do just leave the auto power on off, and they just leave it on, because when it's not doing any boo, it's not pulling much power at all. Now you might look down here and see this is only a 2-prong. It is indeed. We can get the power cable. And that is because it's purposely not grounded, because you don't want to create a ground loop. Oh, they leave the little tape sticking up purposely so you don't have to cut it. You can peel it. If you guys ever do like tape anything that you know you're going to have to take off, yep, leave yourself that like fold over the edge, or leave it sticking out the tape. That way you can far more easily undo it. I do that with electrical tape all the time when I'm temporarily doing it. So this looks like would be a C13, except it is missing the ground plug. And that is purposeful, so you don't create a ground loop. It's only a 2-prong, because that's actually your ground. That's where you're going to ground. And it actually can, some very high-end subwoofer cables actually have a ground prong on them, much like a turntable would have. And that is because of the fact that you're running a line level signal, which is a low volume signal, like a low strength signal over a long distance, meaning RF, RFI, like radio frequency interference stuff. Basically, it can degrade, even if using a quality cable over that period and area. So that's why it's got the ground. Same thing because with a turntable, you're going to have a phono preamp on it. So that you're basically taking the signal that from the little needle going, and then taking that to a phono preamp, and then taking the phono preamp to your amp. Some of that is done internally if you have a new enough system. But still, that ground is there, so you can actually ground this to the receiver rather than to the wall where you'd have a 3-prong. Now, for the distance that this is going to be away from my receiver, the what brand is it? It's the audiophile brand from Best Buy. They had it. Was it Audio Engine or something like that? They have the one that has the RCA and then a ground, right? Max length of that was 6 foot though. Being that this is going behind my couch, which is on the other side of the room from the receiver is, that wasn't enough, so I'm doing it myself. And this, like, after I looked it up and figured out why it was needed, I know from the turntable or like your record side of things that grounding that can be very, very important. And grounding that ideally to your amp is something you want to do. Looked it up. Yep, that's because I saw some real high-end cables having that on there, and I'm like, oh, is that needed? The other thing, in order to do this, you have to have a ground terminal on your subwoofer. Obviously, this is a high enough grade subwoofer that it has one. But then your receiver has to have one. Looked at my receiver because it, and I don't know if it's for the subwoofer necessarily, but because the phono preamp, it has a phono preamp on it. Not that I use the phono preamp on my home theater receiver. That's kind of weird. I will say the home theater receiver too, though I haven't tested it, it can work. It has its own DAC in there because I guess of course it does. And you can plug the DAC straight into a phone theoretically. So I have yet to try it straight into a computer. I wonder if it supports Atmos and that sort of stuff when you direct connect it. That would be interesting. Because that would be, for those wondering, if you wanted then the surround aspect of a home theater receiver, but didn't have an HDMI out or couldn't, because there's like ways to do HDMI out just for audio rather than having it show up as another display, right? You could actually just use the USB portion potentially on that receiver that's meant for like a phone, but then use it for your, obviously your computer, and still use the amp and everything. You just wouldn't have to do it over HDMI. Haven't tested that despite having this thing now for probably 2 going on 3 years. Not the subwoofer, the receiver and my LG OLED. It's a B2. But yeah, so I am, let's consult the manual real quick, but pretty sure that I'm going to do the bypass with the LFE. So they're saying mono RCA cable from sub LFE out to LFE line input. Yep. So I have 2 subwoofer outputs on mine. And if you're like, why 2? Some people like running 2. Actually, why you would run 2 is with different frequency. If you have a bigger one and a smaller one, or some people would have very low, like sub-bass subwoofers, and then they would have bass subwoofers. That's kind of where that comes from. You know, if I had something like that, that'd be really kind of cool. There were some really, I don't want to call them drum. I'm thinking of drum scanners, which is like for scanning photos and stuff. It's not a drum subwoofer, but there's like a very weird, very low bass subwoofer that sounded like resonance. And that was like the kind of the typical, like you get something like this, maybe even something bigger, but then you get something with a much, because basically to make those larger waves, you need a physically larger object. Position you've chosen, listening position, deeply dependent on a room. Could be too much bass in one spot, locked in there. Listening dull for the most part. Move it. General rule, corner placement of the subwoofer will increase overall bass output. Moving subwoofer away from corners will decrease output. Bass tighter, most include a microphone, some for room correction. Yep. We often recommend utilizing this to best achieve. Yeah, I think on one of the what was it, the AMD or the Intel upgrades, one of the guys got a very high-end receiver that actually had like a stupid good mic that you could hook up, whereas like the ones that come with like the Denon are like just these little like mics on a stand that you plug in the front. But the mic that came with the amp was like an actual like audio correction mic for like a home theater amp, which was crazy. And there was like software you ran, not just through the receiver itself, like you'd run it on a laptop sort of thing. I've seen that done in car stereos as well, because back in the Geek Squad days, I did help in the auto tech, technically, but it'd be like the audit car audio area. Low pass crossover, LFE, or 80 hertz for stereo is what they're saying. So I want the bypass because then my receiver, as pictured here, will handle the LFE, like what it's sending out. Now, it could actually even change the LFE. Like, you can set it, right? But then the LFE for certain stuff, like we were talking about Dolby Digital, was at 120. I believe for THX, it's at 80. And all that. Theoretically, when the receiver is getting a certain type of audio codec, it's changing the LFE to the one specified for that codec. I don't know if that's true. We'd have to consult that manual. Theoretically, that's the point of those standards, though. Yep, grounding screw only needed in special configurations. Yep, we might as well. Right there, grounding screw only needed in special configurations. We're gonna be using it. Excuse me. Volume is set to 60 or 80% for typical use. I'd probably start at 60 and work your way up. Low pass, set to bypass when using LFE mono signal, which we are. Phase, continuously variable. Like I said, I did like that where it's not just a switch. Auto power, 20 minutes, no signal, it turns off. Peace of mind warranty, 5 years. Woofer is 5 years, electronics are 2 years. And they'll fix it, here you go. Easily replaceable using only a Phillips screwdriver, minimal technical knowledge. Copy the sales invoice. If you can't find it, we'll fire your computer, look for it. Yeah, these guys seem to be just a quality company in general. They're very, you can only get their stuff directly through them. And even though like this specific speaker may not be made in the US, they are a US based company. You know what I mean? Hey, it's got to say something if like your speakers are so popular they're like back ordered, where I have to go on like a mailing wait list to just be able to. I'd go on a mailing wait list to be able to back order it. Granted, within the back order, I think it's because they knew they'd hit the port or something. I had it within 2 weeks of the back order. Nothing crazy there. So looks like everything I said just by looking at it was correct. If you guys want to check out the next video, that'd be awesome, because that is going to be on the cables that I am going to be using for this. Oh, before we cut it off, and I was about to, you saw me attempting, not tempting. Let's go and check out ye olde subwoofer. So, ideally, there's the receiver over there. Right. We got my 1970s, late 70s, maybe early 80s Pioneers there. Quite like those. I did refoam the tweeters. Everything else in there is cloth, so you don't have to. Subwoofer is going to go back there. I have to figure out some amount of placement. For now, yeah, I don't know if it'll fit between the table and the chair. Ideally, I'm going to swap the table and make it into more of a square table that goes over the subwoofer. And that's where, like I was saying, I need the 90 degree, because if the subwoofer is facing this way and the speakers are facing this way, right, that's 90 degrees from there. If it's right here to my left, which obviously is going to be very loud, it could be 180, because it's going to be facing the speakers. And if you have it going the same direction, like poking out when this goes out, right, they literally are going to cancel each other. So that's why you got to flip it so it runs in reverse. Yeah, for now, until we figure this out, I will probably just try to put it on this concrete patch back here. I think I have enough slack on my cable But for example, the cables, now these two are going to be fairly easy. And you're like, oh, where's your center channel? I haven't put it up yet. I do have a mount though to put it right below this TV here. These are pretty much exactly at, the tweeters in here are exactly at ear height. Tweeters and horns. So, and people are gonna be like, oh, but this is all good speakers are good. These are good enough, at least for me. I'm sure if I listen to some higher end ones from like modern ones, they'd sound better. But these actually sound pretty damn good. And they have a certain tone to them, and they have a vibe, you know. I have some from, it was like mid to late 80s, I want to say, that are going to be the rears. They're like bookshelf size. Where the fuck those are is a great question. Center channel, I have this really nice acoustic research, I believe it is. There you go. It's a custom, like a AR custom. So my uncle always kicks himself when he finds out. He gave me this guy as a gift one year. I'm sure there's better ones out there, but this is a quite nice one. He's like, wait, I gave you that one? Like, and the one I had previously wasn't that bad, but this one is real nice. And then these are going to be my Atmos. Oh, here, I gotta turn that on. There you go, AR. There you go. So if I recall correctly, that's inactive. That's active. Those are passive woofers. If you're wondering why it looks imbalanced. Oh, and I do still have that Pioneer receiver that shit itself, because the analog portion of it still works. So I'm probably gonna put it in the garage. These I've definitely shown up on the channel before. And one of the tweeters need to get replaced, which is apparently not uncommon. These are super unique though up top, as they're a omnidirectional ribbon tweeter, right? And then on the front here, so that's where I gotta replace the, so, and not that it's just foam. These would still work. There'd be a little bit of weird coming out of that specific one, but those are gonna be my Atmos speakers. I think they're oddly suited. I think there are only 2 models ever made with that sort of like omnidirectional ribbon tweeter, because this company no longer makes them, and the guy that designed that held the patent, from what I was reading, that was years and years ago, but he never sold that patent to any other brand. If you can see the mounts here, I do have, I think in this box are the like articulating wall mounts. So that's what's going to go up here in the middle. I'm going to do middle placement because my rears are going to be so close to where I sit, right? They're going to be roughly, think of this line as like the room, effectively. I know there's no wall here, but that's how I treat it as the room. So we're probably going to go, I don't remember if it's this beam or that beam that's the center. That one or that one. We're going to mount on one of those. This will eventually be finished and drywalled. But I want to know that at least the placement so I can have the wires coming through the wall. A lot of this is probably going to be for the rears out here, up here, and I'm going to make like a, or even just a flat board that goes against that, so then all the wires can route up here and through, right? Like back and down. Or the subwoofer cable I could punch potentially some of it. I might not even have to go up this back wall. I've yet to decide, but I might be able to punch straight through that down there more, make an opening. And that's going to be the issue with that, though, is how I built my cinder block shelf. That's super durable. Yeah. So I have a feeling we're going to be going up the wall if I don't want to move all that. But that's how we're going to be doing the subwoofer cable for now, is up the wall. Up the wall, through the hole, around the back side here, up here, boo-ba-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, ba-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, over the vent of the heater, and then down that crack, down the wall, or down that far corner potentially as well, down the wall. Now, eventually, I should be able to have the wires pop out of the wall right there. Like put a little bracket and they pop out there. You know, to have them come out more at floor level. But for now, they're going to have to come out kind of like over that lip right there. And then the speakers that are getting mounted on the back here are going to get mounted that corner and that corner, facing in a bit. Maybe facing in a lot a bit. I have yet to figure that out yet, but I was thinking the wires coming down from this portion up here, and you can see my trace wire. I'm running some. That's the Ethernet I was running. I gotta run 1, 2 for my computers that on the other side of the wall. That eventually won't be there. That'll be up in the office, but then I gotta run 1 for this guy, home theater PC over there. So that'll, instead of dropping down there, it'll kind of follow where the subwoofer down plugs in. Then all the rest of the stuff for the TV will need one as well. I'm probably going to just run those off a switch. The PC can have a dedicated 10 gig line, and that can just have 1 gig for all I care. Eventually I might run a PoE 10 gig to 2.5 gig switch that they have. If anything in there is 2.5 gig, you know, all depends. But here is not the UPS that's on top of it, but this is the subwoofer that I have run prior to even living in this house. So it's been a hot minute. So pretty simple, big speaker, small box by comparison. That's what I was kind of expecting. I was kind of expecting to have to buy the modern version of this. There you go, JVC SP PWA 450. It just has a line in with a fuse and a level. It doesn't have auto on, auto off. And I have its little brother over here. That's the PWA 350. I think it's a little bit older and a little bit smaller. I mean, does this even have an age on it? It doesn't. There you go. Victor Company of Japan Limited. Assembled in the USA from US and foreign components. Been a hot minute since speakers were made in the USA. So I'm probably getting rid of that. And this guy over here, I don't think they're anything. Yeah, made in the USA. Yeah, it says 350 over there. You can zoom in for you. See, 350. That one was actually in the garage for a while as a subwoofer. So, I mean, if anything, that's potentially where these are going to go. But I don't know that I necessarily need a subwoofer in the garage permanently. So, but yeah, so it was a subwoofer. That is what it did, was woof subs or subwoofs. And that's what's getting replaced, finally. Because this was about to go into that setup, and that's when I was like, it's in disrepair. The other one, all like the front studs that held on the grill, the plastic grill, are all cracked off, and then I Gorilla Glued them, and then it spurted out, so you can see the Gorilla Glue from the front. It's not a pretty looking object. Paisley Marie is a pretty looking kitty cat, though. Right, Paisley Marie? Yeah. Look at you go. Yeah. So that's what I was using. I'm sure you guys are saying like, "Oh, this is gonna be a huge improvement." I think so. Here's the hoping. So hit that subscribe button. Come back, check us out. We're gonna go over what subwoofer cable I'm going with because that is not a short distance. The other thing is that a big, I love my temporary spool of. That's definitely how you're supposed to run Cat 7 wire. Oh, and for anyone, my Wi-Fi is so ass right now. That's where the AP is. Not really optimal placement. That's because this guy died. And everything was on top of here. That had to get moved. Everything else had to get cleared out. Same thing on the way to here. It was much cleaner. But the rest of the basement got destroyed, basically, so we could get space to get that done. And now everything's slowly going back, and since we had to peel everything away, it's time to get some of this stuff wired up. Finally getting some of the maybe it's not like the final Ethernet, like the Ethernet wire itself will be the final, right? But like I don't have the boxes to put it in the wall right now, so we're just gonna poke holes, do some keystones. Some of that'll have to get redone. Not the end of the world, but I think this setup, God, man, do I need to adjust that? It looks real bad with the headlamp on. We'll finally have a proper subwoofer. The other potential I had is if I build a thing to protect it. I was thinking about this earlier, was to put it next to, like right there. And then I wouldn't have to run all this crazy wire, but I'd really prefer to have it back in that back corner. Whether it's kind of like right behind my chair, that's real close, but hey man, it's gonna be banging, right? Like boo, 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 boo. But ideally I want to get it back into that back corner. Not blocking the vent, but just about. We're gonna use that, probably that outlet that's right there as well. Yeah, I have to figure all that out, but see, it looks very similar. Having I think it's like a 10-inch speaker versus the 12-inch of the other one, but like actually the regular form factor it looks like maybe like a bit cleaner cut subwoofer of the same, but it is going to be a massive step up. So comments, questions, suggestions, throw them down below. Maybe you guys think I'm fucking nuts. And but from doing my research, what everybody's saying is if you're not at least buying, like there's one that's kind of in this thing's league, but that's one that everybody's saying to go with. Like SVS I think was making a whole line of them, but people were saying like this is the one you to go with if you can get it and if you can fit it. And being that I'm designing the space around this stuff, oh yeah, we'll fit it. We'll fit it all right. It's gonna be nice to start, maybe by the end of the year I'll have all my audio back together for my home theater. Let's I think they're AR8s are what are gonna be my rears. Are they up here someplace? No, there's some old 70s bigger acoustic research. I think they are down there. Yeah, the cats had their way with them. I probably have to make a new front filter. I actually do not know where those other speakers went. I think they are AR8s though. So for those that know some of your... They're not amazing. But for vintage audio, they're decent. They were considered decent bookshelf speakers back in their day. And, you know, audio is, you gotta remember, guys, audio is one of those things. I just made a headphone video where your Sony MDR-7506 still a decent vocal monitoring headphone to this day. And they're as old as me. So, same thing with speakers. If you buy a good speaker, as long as your surround, like I showed you the hole-in-one, I'll have to either get new surrounds for those, being foam, or from what I've heard, because those are sought-after speakers, people have found now that there are better replacements for the speakers in them to match the tweeter. So I'll probably just rebuild them into being better ones of them themselves. And check back. We got a cable video coming up on what we're going to be wiring this up with. See you in the next one. Peace.